From the headlines that move us
to the plays on the field and the people making a difference.
It's news, sports, and stories that keep our community alive.
This is the heartbeat of Tampa Bay.
I'm Christopher Ingram.
And I'm Sarina Fazan. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. We have something very serious to discuss today, Christopher.
We do. We have a very serious, heavy issue, and we've got a great expert, a man that I have known for, I think 10 or 12 years. I can't even remember. Dan O'Shea. Former commander, Navy SEAL, retired, although you're once a SEAL, always a SEAL, right?
I asked the Marines, but
But you were also a hostage negotiator for a couple of years during the Iraq War, and you helped negotiate the release of 448.
I dealt with 448 kidnappings.
Okay.
We did not have 448 happy endings.
Okay.
But
still a lot.
Well, it was. I was running an organization at the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad, and I established it in the summer of 2004, about a month after the Nick Berg beheading. And I dealt with this kidnapping crisis that Al Qaeda had unleashed on the world. They put videos out, much like the drama we're seeing here in this recent case. And I was dealing with hundreds of those cases, including some very high-profile hostage cases that involved journalists and media that were targeted. So there's something about journalists that caused the whole world's attention to focus.
And of course, the case we're talking about today is Savannah Guthrie's mother, Nancy,
Correct.
84 years old, who has vanished.
So as you watch this, Dan, as a hostage negotiator, certainly negotiating for Mrs. Guthrie's safe release is preeminent in law enforcement's main objective at this point. What do you think the strategy is? What's going through the minds of law enforcement on how to negotiate the release of her? And we've had all sorts of different accounts of things that have maybe sent a ransom note, maybe not. We've got to verify a lot of things. Just kind of give us your kind of bird's eye view of the status of this case and what's going on.
So this is not a traditional kidnap for ransom case. Yes, there were ransom notes submitted, but they were submitted to the media, not to the family directly, which is how it normally works. You have the commodity they want. You need to talk to the people who have the money to pay. You go directly to the family. You keep it in the shadows, and you come to the negotiated price. You start with a high asking number. You go back and forth until you come to the number that's agreed. You make the arrangement to do the money drop, the bag drop, and then get the hostage back. So none of those rules have applied here. Yes, there's been ransom notes. No guarantee they're from the actual hostage takers, abductors themselves. And we had a huge dramatic deadline with that second ransom note that was demanding $6 million, but was not providing proof of life. In no way, shape, or form did it provide, that we know of, a concrete proof of life that they still had Mrs. Guthrie, that she was still okay. And that's what's made this case unlike anything else, and the fact that it's being portrayed through the eyes of millions of hits. I just finished an interview on Australian TV, the Today Show. So Savannah Guthrie's counterpart down under, I've done now four interviews with them, and Canadian Sky TV, I believe. So this has got
The world's watching.
Australia, Canada, and all of the U.S. I mean, I did 10 interviews yesterday, 8 the day before. I've never seen, short of the October 7th incident with Gaza, nothing has had the news attention like this case that I've seen in decades.
So let's talk about with the kidnapping, or the alleged kidnapping, if we say, I mean, the police have said, or investigators have said, clearly Nancy was taken. The motive, I mean, or I'll let you share, Dan, from the very beginning what you think of this whole thing.
Well, we don't know the motive. This is all speculation. This could be everything from was it a inside job? Was it maybe a local, like maybe the pool guy, or maybe the landscaper told some friends, and maybe a gang related. Maybe it was that kind of event. Was the cartel involved? Because we're 40 miles or so north of the Mexican border. And I only went right to that thought in that we notice, and what limited information has been released to the public, I don't have any inside game, but that blood trail right on the front porch, pretty significant, not just small drops, but a significant amount of blood. And you have to go, who would harm an 84-year-old woman? And my immediate fear was, I'm thinking the cartel, because they're ruthless. They are ruthless, and they are as bad and as barbaric as Al Qaeda, ISIS, and the Grad. So my immediately thought went to that. But then again, you go, well, what's the motive? Savannah Guthrie is not a controversial person, right? She's a morning talk show host. I mean, she's not a
She's
polarizing
sweet as pie,
figure.
like Sarina.
No, you're so sweet. No, but she's very well loved. You know, an attorney. She
Absolutely.
was so open about her in vitro process of having kids. You know, and their younger children. I mean, she's
And her mother
beloved.
was a saint. I mean, her
Yes.
mother was going to church every Sunday.
Yeah.
You know, in fact, the reason the family found out is she wasn't at church at Mass, and so they called the family, and then they showed up, and the first thing they saw was the blood on the front doorstep, and they called everyone. So that's where. So we don't know where she is. We don't know her condition. The fear and concern is she was on meds. She's 84 years old. Who isn't on something after age 50, honestly, from blood pressure to anything else? And I think the word is she was on blood thinners, which might explain the blood dripping, because of course you can blood much
Bleeds,
easier
yeah.
on blood thinners. But it's very disconcerting. And now we've taken a huge turn in the case with that video that was just released yesterday. Has changed the game. We know that's a second phase. And that tells me that the intelligence leads that they had exhausted, and you know the FBI went back out to the house a second time to do more forensic analysis. They're overturning literally every stone. We talked about the cistern that was opened and looked in last week. So they're checking everything. I think I've heard there's 100 FBI agents on the ground. Kash Patel was out there yesterday. That's not by incident. That's by happenstance. That's because of this case. The president has tweeted about this case. So this has got everyone's attention, and it complicates it. It makes it harder for local law enforcement because they're getting tons of leads, and which ones are valid. They've got to run them all to ground.
And there's sick people out there that will call in a lead that has absolutely, it's complete BS, it's totally made up, and then they have to go and investigate that lead before they determine it was bogus.
I sat with someone this morning on a podcast, a law enforcement professional, and he made a reference that this is the Lindenberg case. If you go back in time, very similar. It was the most high-profile kidnapping case. There were false notes, and ultimately, the child never came home. Right. And there was apparently a ransom drop-off that wasn't to the actual kidnapper. So this is really tragic. It has grabbed the world's attention, and we, it's challenging.
So from
going
a
ahead.
hostage negotiation standpoint, and recognizing that your role in the military was different from this civilian application of being a hostage negotiator, I imagine there's a lot of crossover. What is the main objective of the hostage negotiator? I mean, obviously it's to get the hostage relief, but in terms of like how you go through the process once you have contact with the person or persons, what's your objective there?
Well, you want to establish an abode of fides. You want to confirm that the people you're talking to have the hostage, the kidnapped victim you're looking for. And then you start in the negotiation. It goes back and forth. These cases can last not days, hours, can last weeks, months, and can last years. Wow. So it's a long, drawn-out process. These are normally done in the shadows, not in the open public. And a lot of my colleagues, myself included, I don't think this is a kidnapping. I think this is something more malevolent, and I think that...
And why do you think that, though? Why do you think so?
Well, the blood on the scene, right? That has me concerned from the get-go. And the fact that no proof of life, that we know of, no proof of life in 11 days now has been delivered to the family. And that's very concerning. So there is no way to establish trust and we don't know that the people sending those notes, right? And they're sending them to the media. Right. My theory, or one of my things, that I think it's the media attention is what they wanted all along.
So I'm glad you brought that up, because I wanted to bring back what you said about Savannah Guthrie. She's really beloved.
Correct.
That whoever took her mom, maybe that is what they were hoping for.
Well, you have to go back and did she do interviews that might have upset people, right? And look at that. I mean, are there other news stories out there that maybe people wanted off the news? I mean, you got to look at that.
You do, and sometimes that's another good point. Great point you bring up. You're right. And sometimes, as we have both been in traditional news. You hope you report it accurately and factually, but if you're assigned to read a news story, you're assigned to read that news story. That's a really interesting point.
Yeah. So this thing has been dragging out. It has been a nightmare for the family. My heart bleeds every time that the Guthries or Savannah have to make another plea.
It's so painful watching.
And she has to do this in front of the world stage, which makes it, her pain is being on full blast for the world. So, there's a new development. The fact that they've shown that, we do have a person of interest. I am pretty sure leads are going to be coming in, have been coming in nonstop. I mean, everything from the balaclava, the backpack he's wearing, to the clothes, the gloves he had on, and his actions at the scene. There are a lot of clues out of that. Law enforcement have pulled out a number of suspicions, but there's someone out there that knows who this person is. Someone out here is going to recognize guys don't throw away jeans and certain modern clothes. Someone out there in the Arizona area can look at that and go, you know what, I think I know who that is. So,
and when in doubt, call.
They need to do the right thing.
Yeah.
That call last night, they rolled someone up last night, and I guarantee someone called in and said, hey, it could be that guy. And then he was released after a few hours. They've looked at the family, and you really, over my 2 years in Iraq, the stories that came out about these kidnappings, like you have to look at all worst case scenarios, and no one can be looked at without suspicion, even family members at times.
When you were in Iraq negotiating, what kind of leverage do you have as a negotiator, and whom are you working with? When you had hostage situations then, were you working with families or
I'll give you a
government
perfect example.
agencies? Yeah.
Towards the end of my tour, I'm in the middle of the biggest kidnapping case of my life. A couple, Jill Carroll, international headlines. There were deadlines that came for her from, quote unquote, the Al Qaeda group that held her. She fortunately wasn't held by Al Qaeda. She was held by a similar aligned Salafist organization, but they were in the kidnapping business. They wanted money. And because of her news story, a young 28-year-old girl, for 18 months I tried to get the U.S. government, the mission, the ambassador, the generals, hey, sir, focus on this kidnapping ring. I had targeted a kidnapping ring, but they were targeting French journalists, Italians, local nationals. So the U.S. mission was like, well, they're not kidnapping Americans. We're not going to put our troops to task on the problem. When that young girl got kidnapped, all of a sudden, the ambassador was getting phone calls from the White House every time a Jill Carroll video showed up. He started attending my Thursday hostage working group meetings that had the interagency. Every intelligence organization, special ops unit, and everything under the sun was in the sensitive room called a SCIF, and we had meetings every Thursday with 30, 40 people showing up, representing everyone from the FBI to the associated intelligence organizations and the special forces units. And ultimately, in that last 90 days of my tour, our very best, most elite hostage rescue unit on the planet, and the British as well, went after this kidnap ring that had targeted Jill Carroll and the Christian Peacemaker team that was a Brit, two Canadians, one with dual cit to Canada, and an American citizen. Sadly, the American Tom Fox was killed, but ultimately we put such pressure on the kidnapping ring, they just gave them up. They literally gave up the remaining hostage, including Jill Carroll, because the kidnappers were waking up every day and another one had been rolled up the night before. And they decided, you know what, let's just let her go and hopefully they'll stop coming after us. So it will take pressure. Again, our guys were going after them at night, doing a little bit different than the FBI hostage rescue team, but same type of training, same type of capability. This hostage rescue team guys from the FBI, they are a national asset. They're a tier 1 national asset, and they're in Arizona right now, and you can guarantee they're being put to use, as are the local SWAT team from the Pinellas County. And let's just pray and hope that they're safe executing these warrants. They're going to be coming in, and hopefully it's going to lead us to who's responsible to this, and most importantly, bring Nancy Guthrie back to her family.
All right.
Well, honestly, they're going back to Christopher's question, because I stopped and, talked about Savannah. Once they do go in, and once they identify maybe another person of interest, can you pick up what happens from there? It's an elite team that goes in, or is a select team?
Absolutely. It's a SWAT team, Special Weapons Tactics, and the FBI hostage rescue team, literally hostage rescue team, that's in the title. They train with the tiered national assets. They train, and most of those guys all come from the Special Forces, the Navy SEALs, the Marines, the PJs, pararescuemen, and they are, they're the best domestic law enforcement SWAT team with the training they have. And that's who will go after. And basically they'll get an intelligence warrant. They will surreptitiously, hopefully, roll up on a target and stack on a door. And then when they go, it's like we've seen the movies. They'll crash a door, bust open the door, throw in a flashbang, and then go in surgically to try and clear it. But they're not going. They're going in to rescue. That's the goal. They're going in to rescue someone. They're not going in to necessarily kill people on the target like per se we would in Iraq. They're going there to bring people, because we want them to face justice. These individuals responsible, we want them to face. We want them captured. Yeah. We want them to face justice for any harm that it came to Miss Guthrie.
Is there anything that we did not ask you that you feel is important to share specifically on this case?
I did an interview with Megyn Kelly a couple days ago. It had like 1.5 million views in 24 hours. It's crazy, and I think it's up to 5,000 comments. I had to go through them. One guy made a comment about, I want to call it a negative comment, but it was, if about like that I was all over about worst case scenarios. That I was a little bit too like, you know, but I have
Too
a
negative.
I have a responsibility to tell people that, hey, expect the worst. And our presumption always from Iraq, when I would speak to ambassadors, was you have to be prepared for the worst, and it's going to maybe end up on Al Jazeera on a video.
Prepare for the worst and hope for the best.
Correct. So never give up hope. I mean, Jill Carroll's deadlines came and went, and we got her back, but we also had many sad cases, many unhappy endings. So you have to be prepared for both. And let's just hope that Nancy's still alive and that she's going to come home to her family.
Good. Dan O'Shea, thank you for being here. Thank you for your service and your friendship.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Every story shared,
Adds another heartbeat to Tampa Bay.
from courage to community.
We are so proud to tell the stories that keep our neighborhood strong.
Thanks for watching The Heartbeat of Tampa Bay.